interesting year because COVID, well, it threw everything out of whack, and the schedule for World Athletics was among the things that got thrown out of whack, and now things starting to stabilize, and there will be a year without either an Olympics or a World Championship. So that speaks to the deep field because we have a lot of competitors here looking for a spot on that World Championship team, and the senior women getting prepared. 76 athletes scheduled to take part here. They will do 4 loops of the 2.5-kilometer course here at the Fanshawe Golf Course.
What a setup, Adam. Well done. And yes, certainly it is set to be a smaller field, one of the smallest, but certainly not lacking in depth. As we mentioned, 4 Olympians taking to the field here as part of those 76, including the defending champion, not an Olympian, although a World Athletics competitor in her own right. Leslie Sexton is looking to put herself back in contention for that World Championships, as you mentioned, only the 3rd time in North America ever. And it goes back, well, I hate to say it, but longer than most of these athletes have been alive. 1992, the last time that the World Championships in cross country took place in North America, as you mentioned, in Boston at the time. They are in Tallahassee this year. And that is partly why you're seeing such incredible depth. And you mentioned COVID. Adam, I think it's really important to contextualize this. It has been 2 full quadrennials, 2 full 4-year Olympic periods since we've had a normal 4-year stint in terms of World Championships and Olympics. That means that because the Olympics got pushed in 2020 to 2021, we had 4 years back to back of Olympics, World Championships, and then Olympics. We've not had a quote off year from those global games since 2018. We're now experiencing that somewhat off year. Of course, we have the Commonwealth Games coming up, a very competitive event, but it opens the door for athletes on the track to compete on the cross-country course in a global championships without having to sort of give up the opportunity to compete on the world stage at a major outdoor track game. So all of that to say, that's partly why we're seeing these deep fields. And on the women's side, my goodness, can we talk about the depth? Leslie Sexton, defending champion, she is back. Although I don't see her at the moment in that front pack. Not sure if you do there, Adam.
Appears to be Kaylee McCabe right now leading the way, but it is a group of 4 who have established themselves at the front early on here.
And McCabe, coming off of that victory 2 years ago in her first outing at the Canadian Cross Country Championships. We mentioned her a little bit earlier. A tremendous competitor in the NCAA for West Virginia. She led her team to a national victory in the NCAA Cross Country Championships, placing 6th overall. That's one of the highest placings ever by a Canadian athlete at those cross country championships. She's the Canadian steeplechase record holder, and I did mention 4 Olympians, 3 of them steeplechase runners, 1 of them a cross-country skier, and that is not a surprise. The translation from steeplechase and skiing into cross-country running always tracks.
So it is McCabe continuing to lead right now, still very early on in this race. And now the athletes splitting apart, trying to avoid the really muddy parts of this straightaway.
And this is partly why those steeplechasers do so well over the cross-country course. I mean, there's sort of the obvious parallel with those hay bales that they have to navigate. But more than that, it is the footing. This is a relatively gentle course, not a lot of uphills. It's fairly flat. That being said, as things get later and later in the day, the conditions on the underfoot, I should say, get worse and worse. And those who know how to navigate steeple barriers, know how to keep themselves out of trouble over water, tend to do the best when it comes to the cross-country course. Adam, Kaylee McCabe is on a mission. She is running away with this thing early on. This is a bit of a surprise for me. I would have thought she might have tried to bide her time a little bit, at least for the first lap, but no, she is brave, bold, and going for it.
It's Florence Caron from the call team right now with the ever so slight edge for second place. As you can see, the athletes again really spreading out on this part of the course because it is really starting to get eaten up towards the middle.
So this is an interesting part of the tactics, right? Again, as you mentioned, you see athletes all the way off to the left of screen, all the way off to the right. Sometimes you see this with marathon running as well, where, you know, the curve of the road is such that it sort of is more advantageous to run on one side than the other. You don't see that all the time on cross country, except when it gets this muddy and this chewed up. So there's a line of sight that you have to keep on the leader in order to sort of maintain that elastic, not letting it stretch too far. And I just wonder if the athletes who are moving to the outside of this course might be at a bit of a disadvantage having that line of sight over a very strong leader in the form of McCabe.
Overcast conditions in London, -1, feels like -6. But no snow scheduled until about 5 p.m. local time, so that would be after the conclusion of the races here on day one.
Some good driving of the arms there up that first steep hill, but Kaylee McCabe just absolutely dominating this race, continuing to extend her lead over the rest of the field, and she is clearly, like I said, on a mission. Look, there's not another person in sight right now. This is brave running. This is the kind of running we might see or expect to see in the final lap of a 10K course, not in the opening 1,000 meters, Adam.
Well, it's playing out a bit like we saw in the last race. That was the U20 men's 8K race, and Xavier St. Ange got out to a very early lead there, then held on. And Kaylee McCabe doing the same early portion of that strategy here as she gets out to a pretty significant early lead.
We saw this with our U20 men's race. You know, just an athlete taking to the front and going for it from the early position. And here you see McCabe navigating, interestingly, those hay bales, choosing to run the slightly longer distance. A lot of athletes will just jump over them to run the shortest distance. She's choosing to run around them. And as a steeplechaser, surely she has it within her wheelhouse athletically to hurdle those hay bales, but she's choosing to run around them. She is also just looking probably the strongest I've seen her. I saw her, I watched her run that cross-country NCAA championships. I watched her run 2 years ago. She looked phenomenal. This is a level up from that. I have not seen her look this strong, this confident ever on a cross-country course. This is really exciting. And if she were to make that World Cross Country team in Tallahassee, if she can bring the same energy to that World Cross Country Championships, she would have an excellent chance of finishing probably the best any Canadian ever has as a woman in the senior cross country race at those World Championships.
Well, it's been quite the 2 years for McCabe. She was a member of Team Canada at the 2024 Paris Olympics. Again, she competed in that 3,000-meter steeplechase. She was 6th at those NCAA cross-country championships. And then here in 2025, she was the NCAA indoor champ over 3,000 meters, and then turned pro in the spring, now running for the on-running team.
Yeah, and again, such a great example, Adam, of how the NCAA can when done right, set Canadian athletes up for just tremendous international success. I'll give a really quick anecdote. When I competed for Duke, I competed on the World Junior Cross Country scene twice, in 2005 and 2006, and my highest place finish there in my final year was 40th at the World Cross Country Championships. The following year at the NCAA Championships, I was 115th. And I just remember thinking to myself, how did I place 40th in the world 6 months ago? And here I am, 115th. It shows the depth of the NCAA program. And so if you can excel there, you can really excel on the world stage. When done right, it sets you up for absolute dominance.
Well, let's talk about dominance. After 2.5 kilometers, McCabe with a 12.5 second advantage over Chloe Thomas. Thomas and Caron running neck and neck through 2.5 kilometers, both clocking 8:23.2, and then about 4.5 seconds back, Cleo Boyd from Physicult.
Well, furthering the conversation of Canadians in the American collegiate system doing well, the fact that Caron and Thomas are second and third is really not a surprise if you think about it. So Thomas was 9th in the NCAA, comes from a figure skating background, very much like our former Canadian marathon record holder, Laney Marchant, but she, has just had a phenomenal experience down there in the South, and so too Caron. Coming off a fantastic performance earlier this year, 14th in the NCAA, top Canadian. Again, she runs for Penn State, and also coming off of a fantastic track season outdoors with the 10,000 meter championship win for Team Canada.
But the question is now, are any of them going to be able to reel in Kaylee McCabe? It's a pretty big ask at this point. Again, she had a lead of about 12.5 seconds through the opening lap. Again, these athletes running the 2.5 kilometer loop.
Well, again, we saw this in the U20 men's race, and I just wonder if the field has let McCabe go. They have decided we are running for second and third. Those podium positions matter, but also we're running for top 10 to try to get ourselves in contention for that world cross-country team. McCabe, I can't say enough about her. This is the strongest I've seen her look. Now she's choosing to navigate the hay bales, hurdling over them. And in fact, I should check myself, Adam, because the hay bales that we saw earlier on were a different set of hay bales where you can run around them. These ones, you don't have a choice. So I apologize for that misdirect. But as we saw with some of the earlier races, that hard right hairpin turn around that tree, that would be a perfectly acceptable opportunity to look behind you, or at least to your side, to see where the competition is. Her eyes are entirely focused on trying to beat that gator in front of her. She has no concern for what's happening behind.
They make the senior athletes suffer a little more. They give them 2 sets of hay bales to contend with.
Which, again, for our steeplechasers, really is maybe a welcome problem. You see there are 2 other Canadians in the NCAA competing against one another for second and third. That's Florence Caron and Chloe Thomas. Caron out of Call, again 14th at the NCAA Championships. We should mention she is the partner of Olivier Demule, another another Canadian standout in the steeplechase. Pardon me, Adam.
That was a great shot. If you could see the 2 of them split as they came into a muckier portion of the course. Caron goes wide left while Thomas holds on to the inside. You can kind of see little stretches of green to the sides of that portion of the course. And now McCabe running right in the middle as she comes up to the hill. And look at the battle here now for second. It continues to be between Thomas and Caron. And then there's quite a bit of a gap back to fourth, fifth, and sixth. Kaylee McCabe getting close to the halfway point here of this senior women's 10K race. Through the first lap, she had a lead of 12.4 seconds. Came through that opening lap at 8:10.8. And we will soon find out what her lead is through 2 laps. McCabe, the Canadian champion 2 years ago. McCabe continuing to hold things down at the front. No challenge yet to her lead. And McCabe comes through the halfway point in 16:17. That last lap, 8:06 for her. First lap was 8:10.8. That lead after one lap for McCabe was 12.5 seconds. And it has jumped to about 26 seconds now after 2 laps. McCabe threw in 16:17.1, and Caron threw in 16:43.3. She and Thomas continuing to battle it out for second right now. Thomas about a second behind Caron at that 5K split.
You know, Adam, this is how we often see Kaylee McCabe running. She's, again, a very dominant, strong, intentional runner. And she sets the tone early on from most of the races that she runs. That's partly why she's the Canadian steeplechase record holder. She knows how to get the job done, and she's also just so steadfast in her commitment to the course. Look at her turnover. She's running really quickly. It's neat to see it from that side perspective, because sometimes the head-on gives you a little bit of a distorted view of exactly how fast the turnover is. Kaylee McCabe is running incredibly quickly. That 5K split, so impressive, and not another competitor in sight. As I said, she's on a mission, but she's also, you know, she's done a lot of training by herself. She knows how to get the task done on her own, and she is clearly demonstrating that here. Masterclass, incredible performance by McCabe over halfway through this race.
Well, she's certainly making it look easy right now. Looks very comfortable, very in control. And again, that lead is substantial.
If those splits are to be believed, Adam, 16:17 through 5K on a cross-country course by yourself is absolutely extraordinary running. Many of our top 5,000 meter track performers have road PBs somewhere in the high 1550s. To run this fast on this course alone through that 5 kilometer split, I really cannot tell you how impressive this is. This may be one of the most impressive cross-country races we've ever seen by a Canadian. Magic is happening in London right now, and everyone should be very excited about this.
McCabe coming up to the 6 kilometer mark right about now.
We're seeing McCabe move to that outside of the course. Again, she's so experienced, she's so knowledgeable, she's so mature. She's finding her shortest line, but she's doing it intentionally. She's trying to stay out of the mud, but you see her not running all the way against that fencing. That's because she knows she doesn't want to get too close to it. Also, the next turn is to her right, so she's technically running longer than she needs to right now, but she's doing it in service of staying out of trouble with the footing. There are our chasers. It remains Thomas in that purple kit and Caron in the pink, I believe, Adam, and those two are chasers over McCabe, but she has maintained that 10-12 second lead over the rest of the pack and has not looked back once. Again, I can't overstate how impressive this run is by Kaylee McCabe. We saw her come out in really dominant fashion in 2023 in Ottawa. She ran extraordinarily well over that course, took the lead, took the victory in her first cross-country senior championships. She is duplicating that, but sort of making fun of it, I must say. This is a joy to watch as McCabe, the Olympian, the Canadian record holder, works her way in incredibly bold fashion to another national title.
There is no other competitor in that shot right there, and now McCabe believes the shot as she makes another strong charge up the hill. And there are second and third, Caron and Thomas. I think that might be Grace Feather-Stonehaw holding down fourth right now. We'll get that confirmed once they get through that 7.5 kilometer split.
Well, Adam, that's the thing, is that the athletes chasing her have incredible resumes to their own right. It's not as if this is, a lax field. There are some really strong runners, including 3 other Olympians who are in that chase. World Championship contenders, folks who have been at the World Championships before in cross country, on the roads, on the track. This is a stacked field, and for McCabe to be running away with this level of confidence is unprecedented. At my sort of very unscientific count, she had at least a 20-second lead over our chasers, who again include a 9th and 14th place finisher in the NCAA cross-country program. I mean, the way that McCabe is running right now, like I said, she could be in contention for a top 10 finish at the World Championships, which would be one of the best performances we've ever seen by a Canadian.
Well, and as we've talked about, this is a deep field here at these championships this year, especially in this senior women's race. But right now, McCabe is at such a high level of performance that so far no one has been able to challenge her. And
I love to see this. She does not have to be running this hard. She could pull back a little bit. She has not stopped turning over at this rate from the moment the gun went. I think that this is really exemplary of what Canadian athletes need to be doing to keep ourselves at the top of the international contingent. You know, McCabe, she's a bold runner. She's strong. She's brave. She really puts the screws to herself, not just the field. And to be able to bring that level of elevation out of yourself is a really, really special thing. I think that she is going to be part of the game-changing prospect that happens in terms of Canadians on that international stage when it comes to cross-country, track, and road. This is thrilling running.
And McCabe now through 7.5 kilometers in 24:26.5. That last lap, 8:09.4. So she slowed a little bit on lap 3. Her best 8:06.3 on lap 2. But the real question is, what is her lead? And it is up to about 40 seconds as Thomas comes through in 25:06.3. So the battle between Thomas and Caron continues, just 0.2 of a second separating them through the 3/4 mark of this race. And it is Grace Featherstoneha running in 4th. McKenna Fitzgerald rounding at the top 5 through 7.5 kilometers. So McCabe continuing to keep her foot down on the gas pedal here. An 8:09.4 last lap. 24:26.5 through 7.5K. And a lead of 39.8 seconds. Just dominant so far from the Olympian. McCabe looking for her second senior cross-country title after taking home gold in 2023. And again, looking to continue what has been a fantastic, well, really 2 years for this athlete. Olympian in 2024, member of the Canadian contingent at the Paris Games. Also been a 2-time team member of Canada's World Championship sides. Again, competing in the 3,000 meter steeplechase there. And going wide again, trying to avoid the mucky, muddy terrain that has developed, as this is the 7th race of the day. Just one more to come. And that will be the senior men's race. That's going to have another deep field. This one has a deep field as well, but Kaylee McCabe, well, it's been of no concern to her as she got out to an early lead and has just continued to increase that lead. And now here she is in the final lap. These are the hay bales that you have to hurdle. And no issues there for McCabe.
Again, just incredible running by the Canadian steeplechase record holder. This is an extraordinary piece of work. I really cannot speak highly enough about what we're seeing unfold in front of us. She's clearly come in the shape of her life, went on a mission, and is accomplishing it with incredible fortitude. Kaylee McCabe is, I'm going to call it, Adam, the most exciting woman in mid-distance and distance running right now in Canada, because this set of running is absolutely extraordinary. To go through 16, 17 through 5K, 24:26 through 7.5K. She hasn't looked behind her once. She hasn't slowed her pace. She hasn't dropped her arms. Her turnover remains incredible. The distance on the rest of the field, sensational. This is just absolute top-notch international level running, and we're watching it unfold in London, Ontario. This is so exciting.
On the team front, right now it is the Vancouver Thunderbirds with the advantage, and that's through 3/4 of this race. But this shot at the top of your screen, I think, really does this justice. This shot's not bad either, but that last shot, you can just see, you could begin to see second and third place creep into the screen. That's Chloe Thomas and Florence Caron, but this is the Kaylee McCabe show right now in London. You can see the look of determination on her face there as she comes up that hill.
Wow.
Gabe easing through the turn here, looking strong, looking in control. This is the battle for second at the bottom of the screen, and right now it is Chloe Thomas trying to pull away from Florence Caron. Grace Feather-Stoneha trying to see if she can put herself in the medal mix. She's running in fourth. Feather-Stoneha, the 3,000-meter steeplechase champion at this year's Canadian Track and Field Championships.
Well, again, Adam, we've talked about it. The steeplechase translates incredibly well to the cross-country course, but McCabe continues that mission, navigating those hay bales with absolute grace. And again, she hasn't slowed, she hasn't changed her form. Everything about this is unbelievable for me. If she can do this solo, imagine what this performer can do with the right competition. Again, just the field behind her is, the resumes are arms long. And she's taking them to task.
There's not many superlatives left that we can use to describe this performance here from Kaylee McCabe. The British Columbian, well, just simply dominant here in 2025 and en route to her second Canadian cross-country title in the senior ranks. The real race is on now for silver medals, or the silver medal between Thomas and Caron. Feather-Stoneha again trying to make a claim, a late charge to get herself in medal contention. But at the top of the podium, it is going to be this woman, Kaylee McCabe, an absolutely dominating performance here in London in 2025. And she will once again be the Canadian champion across unofficially in 32:57.3. McCabe takes the gold.
And now we wait, Adam. Look at this margin of victory again over several athletes who have extraordinary resumes on the international stage. This was maybe the most impressive cross-country performance ever on Canadian soil. I am gobsmacked by that. A sub-33 10K on this course, completely solo. Look, I was there when Andrea Sakafian set the 10,000 meter Canadian record in 2021. And I think it could go down if this woman chooses to do so. Here we see our second and third performances. I think this is Thomas coming across just ahead of Caron. A fantastic set of results for those two. Way to put themselves on the podium. Tremendous running, and they worked really hard together to get the job done. But my goodness, Kaylee McCabe is the most exciting distance runner that I have seen in Canada in a very, very long time. I can't say enough about this woman. The battle on here for our top 10. Again, those spots coveted, trying to get onto that World Cross Country team. So many phenomenal athletes in contention for that. But we see a new victor in 2025. 2023 champion Kaylee McCabe comes through just under 33 minutes for that 10K win, I should say, on this cross-country course. 31:13. The Canadian record on the track by Andrea Sakafian. I think that we could see that go down as we see Olympian Regan Yee come across the line. Another steeplechase stronghold and 5,000 meter stronghold. There's Aaron Teschuk, another Olympian. I mean, this really, Adam, contextualizes what we're watching in front of us. Multiple Olympians who are incredible athletes in their own right being beaten by this margin of victory. I'm mind blown.
Still up for grabs on the team side of things. But individually, Kaylee McCabe, absolutely dominant. She wins by over 56 seconds.
Well, and we just saw the defending champion come across the line in the form of Leslie Sexton, who has a 2:28 marathon under her belt. A top 10 performer at the World Championships in her own right. I mean, again, this field is incredibly deep, unbelievably talented. The resumes are, sky high. This is sensational in terms of what it means for the future of Canadian women's distance running.
So last year's champion Leslie Sexton will finish 20 or 20th place here in 2025. Remember that strong Vancouver Thunderbirds contingent, so we'll wait and see where they end up in the team competition. Be the top 4 finishers from each team scoring for their team. It was the Thunderbirds who took the team victory last year. Their top finisher here in 2025, Glynis Sim. She was 6th. Allie Ginther across in 17th and Sexton in 20th. And then Elise Fleming. So that puts them, that 39 isn't the final score here. That will be updated. Just by my quick calculations, I've got the Thunderbirds at 69 points right now.
Well, Adam, we knew it was theirs to lose in terms of the team title. The Thunderbirds coming in with so much strength. And the fact that our defending champion was relegated to 20th, and that is no slight on Leslie Sexton. She is in great shape. She's a phenomenal performer. It just shows the depth of what is happening in women's distance running, and I could not be more excited about it. Watch out, folks, because things are going to be very thrilling over the next few years.
Athletes continuing to cross the line here. Liza Jane Boston for the Newmarket Huskies across. She'll finish up in 49th spot. Well, a performance for the ages here from Kaylee McCabe to take the victory in the senior women's race at the 25 ACXCs. 32:57.3. She wins by more than 56 seconds. Chloe Thomas takes the silver and Florence Caron the bronze. And let's go and hear from the champ. Kaylee McCabe is with Alex Sear.
So Kaylee McCabe, you just took home the ACXC title, won by 56 seconds. Kate Van Buskirk from the live stream sent a text saying, Alex has to realize how impressive that is. I have eyes, man. I can realize how impressive that is. Do you realize how impressive that is? Did you realize that you had that much of a lead starting this race?
I think it wasn't the goal right away to kind of like be out there so far in advance. I know the girls behind me are really high caliber, and I've raced them over the last several years, and especially Chloe and Florence being in college together. So I wasn't quite like aware right away that it was so much, but I think as the race progressed, I knew I could kind of get stronger throughout the race and with my kind of basic training. So I think it overall I was happy with it.
Yeah, Florence Caron, Chloe Thomas, Grace Featherston. This was a very strong field that you took down. Take me through this year, because you were the champion in 2023. We're not competing last year. It sounds like this year training has just been going so much better for you.
Yeah, I think I unfortunately wasn't here last year, but was able to kind of run the college season, and unfortunately was injured after indoors last year, and so didn't quite have the summer that I was hoping for. But on the silver lining is you get a lot of time to build up a base, and the goal is to really build that into the main goal of the year, which is of the next year would be World Cross.
And now you're running as a pro athlete for your first year. What's been the major difference between being a very strong collegiate athlete to now a professional runner?
I think I'm pretty fortunate. I can have a very similar setup being still based in my kind of college town and being able to bring a couple teammates even here today. So I think the transition has been smooth, but the benefit of now in the pro schedule is you do have more time to really build and really mark out your goals and take the time that you need. And so I think that's kind of only going to benefit me going into hopefully, you know, a good race at World Cross and you know, hopefully World Indoors and then on to the summer.
So World Cross, World Indoors this summer, anything else that you're, I mean, this is already a lot, but what you're eyeing for the next year, any distances in particular you think you'll focus on?
Yeah, I think, the main goal is to be as competitive in the steeplechase as I can, but at the same time now, kind of being at this level, you have to be better in all of the distances, and I think there's a few boxes I want to check in terms of running a 5 and running a 15 and really trying to get to that world-class level. I think there's definitely another jump that has to be made to be competitive.
Alors, Kaylee McCabe, la championne en 2023, n'était pas revenue l'an dernier. Maintenant, elle gagne par 56 secondes. Elle va se préparer pour le championnat mondial de cross-country. Elle évolue avec la compagnie On pour sa première année athlète professionnelle. Et aujourd'hui, elle vient tout juste de nous montrer encore une fois comment forte qu'elle est sur le terrain de cross-country. Kaylee, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations indeed to run that course under 33 minutes, to win by almost a minute, and to have that level of nonchalance following the race is extraordinary. It was a stacked